am successful. I look for and find opportunities where others see nothing. I am a lifetime learner. I am solution focused. I see only solutions. I am a solution. Today is going to be solid, incredible, and phenomenal because one of my favorite people in the world. You know, there are very few people that I can sit with and we think together. There are very few people that I can sit with and we reason together. There are very few people that I can talk with and we vibe at a frequency that is not normal. And this guest is one of them. So you know, you need to go buckle your seatbelts because we're about to take off. And this episode is really going to transform your mind. This conversation is going to take you to another level. I don't care what challenges that you have. I don't care whether you are struggling with your mindset. I don't care whether you're struggling with depression. I don't care whether you're having challenges in your relationships, your finances, with your identity, in your business, in your career. You know what? This is the place to be. That's right. We're going to sort out your life. We're going to sort out your career. We're going to sort out everything concerning you as we speak on the topic, Secrets of Africa's Future Dominance. That's right. That's right. And the focus is on the future is black. Ooh. Now, I'm joined by none other than Dr. Pastor, whatever the accolades are, you know, but I call him PK. PK for short. His full name is Olakunle Soriyan. Now, this guy right here is a friend who inspires. We don't need to be on the phone talking to each other every day, but just one conversation or one post or one text message inspires you. He's a brother who uplifts. He's a futurist who sees beyond boundaries. He sees beyond colors. He sees beyond continents. He sees beyond time. He's a disruptor who redefines possibilities. Aha! Impossibility does not exist in his vocabulary. He's a global thought leader who raises incredible leaders that do incredible things. Now. This is the part that I love the most. He's a strategist who solves complex problems. That's right. So whatever organization you're running, whatever business you're running, whatever problems that you're having, if you need a solver of complex problems, this is the guy. This is, you know, 21st century Daniel. That's right. 21st century Joseph. 21st century Solomon. The wisdom that this man possesses provokes innovation, creativity, and transformation. He's a powerhouse who empowers. He's a movement. He's a movement that engenders rapid movement and momentum. He's a great man. He's inspired so many people onto greatness. He's an exceptional blend of gifts, talents, skills, visionary insight, foresight, hindsight, wisdom. And he's a recipient of the prestigious President of the United States Lifetime Achievement Award. He's a Forbes, Wall Street Journal, and USA Today best-selling author. Welcome to my podcast, my very, very good friend, my brother from another mother, PK. How are you, bro?
Man, I'm good, my brother. I'm good. It's a blessing and a privilege and total pleasure to be here, right? To be in your space every time. It's gone on for decades and it's a pleasure every time, right? And, you know, likewise, there's so much about you that the world is still learning, you know, and some of us have the blessing and the privilege to soak in, you know, personally, right? I celebrate you. I honor you. It's a blessing to stand in your, to share in your power, you know, and to enjoy, you know, the beauty of your wisdom in the world. It's such a blessing, my brother. Such a blessing.
Yes. Yes, bro. So let's dive in. I don't want to go to preambles because I know there's just so much that we have to unpack in such little time. But let's dive into it. What made Africa and Africans dominate the world in the past? When we begin to research, when we look at Ethiopia, that was never colonized. They drove out the Italians. when we look at Egypt, this is the second time I'm going to Egypt. On pilgrimage. I'm going with about 25 people end of February. When we look at the ancient Benin kingdom and the Ife kingdom, when we look at the Yoruba tribe, that have, traveled and influenced and shaped culture beyond their geographical space. What was it that made Africa and Africans dominate the world in the past?
It's a lot. And, we can discuss this question all day, right? It's a lot. The challenge that we have today is that a lot of what we define as Africa's history was not documented by Africans. And that changes the whole story, because when the victor writes the history, right, writes the future of history, he documents it in a way that works for the narrative that allows its continuous relevance and dominance. And so there's even so much more about Africa we will never know, because, we were not there in that history. The relics, the few things we were able to pick, speaks to a greatness that, surpasses whatever it is we have seen today, right? I mean, if we pick just the wall of Benin alone, it is documented for a fact that the greatest wall ever built in the world is not the Great Wall of China. It's the Great Wall of Benin, which we lost to colonialism, which we lost to the wars in Benin with the white settlers, as a matter of fact. So the pain of the genius that went with our history, it's not measurable when you think about it, right? But if you ask what it is that defines our dominance and our power as a people, I think it is the privilege of not having the adulteration of a standard by another, geography or another, race of people. I'm not a fan of the diversity of people when defined by race, because God created one race. Because we forget that at times. We people think that God created white people, black people, Asians. No, God created one race. It is as we travel to the world and the weight of time and the burden of geography and ecology and all of that gave us multiple races, right? So God did not create white people. It is so easy to forget. God did not create black people. God did not create Asians. God did not create multiple races. God created one race. And that one race, right, was moving from 0 to 1. And this is important. There are two ways that you can think in the world at any point in history, even till today. It's either you are thinking 0 to 1, meaning that a lot of your expressions, a lot of your assumptions and the decisions you are taking, right, transcends the limits of precedence and standards, because you don't have them. You don't have signposts. So you are compelled to live in a pioneering environment, because there's nothing ahead of you that is inspiring your most urgent commitment, right? So because we didn't have that, the second way to think is to think 1 to infinity, meaning that something has to exist that you then work with, which is the whole idea of improvement and innovation, right? So Africa at the time, and the human race as a whole, well, we now have science that, concludes that the whole of the human race began from Africa, as a matter of fact. So, from Africa, as a matter of fact, and everybody came from here. So when we speak our dominance, we are speaking to our very genesis as the human race. We're
Wow.
speaking to our very genesis of the human race. So if you consider that everything we call human today, the entire human journey began from Africa. So our dominance is clear. We came out and we continue to grow out of zero. And zero produce, all of the genius and all of the power that we have today, right? The challenge, and maybe in another podcast we'll discuss that. One of the biggest challenge for Africa is the idea that we took the classroom in exchange for our education, right? And we don't learn in classrooms. Africans don't have classrooms. We learn through observation, apprenticeship, right? We observe and we interpret, and then we build models based on our interpretation, right? And build craftsmanship and expertise and professionalism based on our interpretations, right? That is who we are. The burden of going into a classroom is Western, it's not African, right? And so
Wow.
we exchange the classroom for our education. We've always been educated. We built so many things. How was the Great Wall of Benin constructed? Do you know the mathematics that will have gone into that construction? The science that will have gone into that construction to build something that massive, bigger than the Great Wall of China, without tractors, without, cranes, without, all of the machines of the 21st century today. And to construct something like that, look at the pyramid, the symmetry of the pyramid, the precision of the pyramid, the gigantic, weight of the pyramids is still one of probably the only standing wonder of the world today amongst the seven, right? And this was built when? By so-called primitive people. What is primitive, right? And so many bigger structures that were built 20 years ago have come down. Skyscrapers that were built, with modern machines and modern equipment, 50 years ago have come down. And something that was built how many years and is still standing today for centuries, right? So there is a genius there. There is a genius there, and symbols like the pyramid represent, the genius, the lost genius that we have known. But to expand that, I think one of the greatest challenge that we had as a people is that we were never, because it's easy for us to say Africa today. It's easy for us to look back into history and say our people, but these people were not one, right? The Bantus were not vibing with the North Africans, right? I mean, so it's not like when we say Africa, it's not like we were describing a people that were in unison. So a lot of the success with the Nubians in Egypt was not felt by the Bantus in West Africa. They didn't even celebrate that. They didn't identify it as their own success, right? What was going on in North Africa was not celebrated by the Oyo Kingdom as their success, or it was even recognized if they were aware at all, right? There were a lot of wars. There was a lot of conquering and conquest going on amongst ourselves. So we didn't even have the time to really sit in the possibilities of our collective genius, right? So Africa at the time, if we care to consider it, was more of a geography of different people, and some of them were adversaries, right?
Wow.
It wasn't a geography of a collective people who were vibing together at a level and creating, an economy and a prosperity that works for all, or curating a power that works for all. So we have to remember that it's like we were waiting for the disruption. We were not united. We were never one, right? We were never like the West in Europe. They had their issues, but they had more in common, and they recognized that very quickly. So that had always been a major issue, and it was only a matter of time before something comes to take advantage of our disunity.
Wow, this is so powerful, PK, because we're unpacking it. Our lack of unity is our greatest weakness today. Our
Till
lack of
today.
unity, as you say, was our greatest weakness then. So a lot of people say that it's the white man that came to divide us in Africa. We have always been divided. And you
Always.
know, let me just share a few statistics with you. Now, another thing you said is that we never documented. We never
Yes.
documented. And so our history was rewritten based on the narrative of our conquerors.
Yes.
Now, check this out, PK. Check this out, PK. Now, and everyone that is watching this, do you know that the size of Africa is 30.37 million kilometers squared?
I,
The land
I
size of
found that
Africa
out.
is
I'm like, oh my God. Look at this.
30.37
It's crazy.
million kilometers
Wild.
square. Now, you will fit China and USA and the whole of Europe inside Africa and there will still be space. Why?
Yes.
Because China is just 9.6 million kilometers square. America is 9.8 million kilometers square. The whole of Europe is 10.18 million kilometers square. So if you look at the map of the world, Africa looks smaller than
Yes.
America.
Yes.
Africa looks smaller than Europe. Africa
Yes.
looks smaller than China,
Yes.
which means that psychologically, they are telling us that we are smaller.
You are smaller. That's it.
Wow. And when you talk about the lack of unity, I can understand why. We are too big. How can you
Too big.
unify such a gigantuous,
You see what I'm saying?
edifice or
Yeah.
a continent like Africa?
Yes.
It's difficult. Now you spoke about the pyramids, PK. This is the second time I'm going to Egypt because the experience, in Yoruba they say "Ìròyìn ò tó àfojúbà."
Juba.
There's no way you can describe an experience. If I say
Correct.
to you, if you've never eaten suya, which is a delicacy in Nigeria,
Yes.
and I say to you, just imagine the taste of suya. There's absolutely no way.
There's no way you're going to do it.
Or if I say another
No,
delicacy in Nigeria is jollof rice. If we say, just imagine the taste of jollof rice, there's no way you can comprehend that except you taste it. They say that the taste of the pudding is in the eating.
Correct.
PK, there's no way you can comprehend the pyramids.
Unimaginable.
Do you know, PK, that they say that you can fit in a Boeing 747 inside the pyramid?
Oh my God.
One. Number two, there is nothing, they say that there's nothing you put inside the pyramid that decays.
Wow. Wow.
There is nothing you put inside the heart where the pharaohs, where their tombs are laid. There is nothing you put in that space that decays. And I found out the reason why. Now, you talked about the mind that created that edifice.
Yes.
The mind that created that edifice is a genius.
Yes.
If there's a word beyond the word genius, then that's the
right.
mind of the African that built the pyramids. Let me get you to understand what I'm saying. Light travels at the speed of 299,792 kilometers per second. Check the numbers out. 299,792 kilometers per second. That's the speed of light. The pyramids of Giza, the coordinates of the pyramids of Giza is 29,979.49 degrees north. The exact same digits as the speed of light.
Wow.
The exact same
Wow.
as the speed of light. No wonder anything that is inside it moves at the speed
Incredible.
of light.
Incredible.
That's why nothing decays in there. Now, the spirit and the mind of Africans that created that edifice is simply phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
Now, PK, before we started this conversation, we were talking about the cap that you're wearing as an original, authentic, cultural and traditional masterpiece.
Yes.
that represents identity. Do you know?
Correct.
When I went into into research and study, I found out that some pharaohs were Yoruba.
Wow.
Some of the pharaohs were Yoruba.
Wow.
Oh yeah, some of the pharaohs. In
Wow.
fact, in
I'm hearing that
fact,
for the first time, man.
in fact, Nefertiti, her real name is Ifatiti. From the research that I've done. And that's why, I can never get enough of Egypt.
Come on.
I can never get enough of Sharm el Sheikh, which is where the Red Sea is, which is where Mount Sinai. So I'm climbing Mount Sinai with 25 people. I'm taking 25 people to climb Mount Sinai. We're visiting the Mount of Transfiguration. They preserve the burning bush. They preserve the burning bush. So I'm taking 25 people to visit the burning bush. We're going in a submarine and going underwater at the Red Sea.
Fantastic.
We're climbing the Mount Sinai. We're visiting the Church of Transfiguration, where a church was built. When we go to Cairo, we're going to visit the cave where baby Jesus, Mary, and Joseph were hidden. That place is called the Hanging Church. We're visiting the River Nile, where baby Moses sailed, and we are visiting the new museum and the pyramids. The people that I took to Egypt last year, their lives have never remained the same.
Oh my
when
God.
when I stood in front of the pyramids, it was about 11:45. 11:45. The sun was almost at the very epicenter of the peak of the pyramid. And then my eyes opened and I saw the pyramids. I saw the pyramids communicating with light, with the sun. And because I do phone photography, I brought up my iPhone and I captured what I saw with the eyes of my spirit. Vicky, I'm going to send you that picture.
Please.
It is mind-blowing. It created a three-dimensional effect. The communication of the energy of the sun and the energy of the pyramids, as they were communicating with each other, they created a three-dimensional view.
Wow.
It was mind-blowing.
Wow.
Now, if you looked at the G-Wagon, the Mercedes G-Wagon, the size of the G-Wagon, if you cut out the bonnet, that's the size of each of the pieces of the blocks that they used to build the pyramids. That's the size of each block, and each block is a chunk of stone. Each block is a chunk of stone. How did they cut it? How did they move it? Because yes. So PK, what they said is that the people that built it had incredible skills, and they moved them to come and stay for 40 days each year. 40. So if they are going to build a pyramid for a pharaoh, once the pharaoh becomes king, they start building his tomb, and it takes about 40 years. Now, and they only build for 40 days out of a year.
Come on.
And they move the people from the center of the city to the outskirts to build. And the stones that they use is not found in that location where they're building. The stone is found in another location. And how did they move it?
Crazy.
How did they cut it? How did they align it? Perfect symmetry. So what are we saying? We're saying that the mind of the African is simply incredible. And we still see it today. When a Nigerian leaves Africa and goes to university abroad, he becomes an A student. When an African goes abroad and you put him in any space, he will excel. Whether it be fraud, whether it be FBI, whether it be medicine, whether anywhere. And that is the mind of the African. So what are we saying to every African that is listening to this episode today? That you are genius.
That's it.
And your genius is not just about your cognitive ability. It's about your spirituality.
Correct.
It's a combination of your mind and your spirit.
Correct.
When I went to Ethiopia, I visited the museum, Ethiopian Museum.
Mm.
And the historian said to me, he said, do you know who the Yoruba people are? I pretended, I said, no, I don't know. He says, well, these are the custodians of knowledge of the earth. They are custodians of the knowledge of the earth. He says, you see that thing that one king in Ife wears? He wears a crown with something like this. He says that is the symbol of wisdom of the earth. That when they have complex problems and they need to solve complex problems, real critical complex problems, they go to only one person. The man that sits in the office. They say he's not a king. He's not a king. But he is the epitome of Yoruba wisdom. And so, PK, tell me about this cap that you're wearing. It's something else.
This cap is prevalent among the Yoruba kings, Yoruba royalty, right? And the idea is that when kings are not wearing their crowns, they wear stuff like this. Of course, in different shapes and in different designs. It's part of what even the Oni of Ife, the Alafin, kings wear this. And this is me identifying with the royalty, not just of my history, but of my destiny as a human being.
Wow.
And I am convinced that I'm a king, and we are all kings and priests. And the understanding is that we have to consistently remind ourselves of the power we have known, of the genius that defined our ancestry, and who we are today, and how we must interpret ourselves and communicate our essence, as a people. So this is what this cap represents for me, and I try to get as many people as I know to wear it, and it's part of, I believe that no society is perfect. I believe that no society is in itself the standard for any other society, right? And my problem with Pan-Africanism, as with all the respect that I have for Pan-Africanism, my problem with it is when it attempts to jettison whatever it is that is maybe European or American, and try to insist that we have to, only identify with that which is African. And I'm saying, so what about the things that are genuinely good from all over the world that we need to embrace? And what about the things that are not necessarily good for us, that are in our own traditions and culture, that we need to jettison, and then preserve the things that are awesome? If you look at everything that the Europeans have done in the world, I call that Pan-Europe, right? The fact that we wear suits in the heat in Africa, the fact that we eat, pizza and, burgers and, and all of that is Western, the fact that we study a lot of what is Western, and we, allow ourselves to consume a lot of that, creation and production, is for me the success of Pan-Europe, permit me to say that, or Pan-America. Then I say, the way to be Pan-African is not to reject everything in the world and get us to stand with what is African. It's to take what is African to the world. So we are Pan-African, not when we eat jollof rice, but when we get the whole world to eat jollof rice. We are Pan-African when we get the whole world to wear that which is ours, right? So that we can benefit economically, right, from that which is unique to us, right? So it's not about avoiding what is Western. The West has done well by pushing its ideas to us. We also should take our ideas there. We need Europeans eating tuwo and amala and pounded yam. We need them eating KK, you know, and we have an entire industry in the world, just like pizza is not African. Pizza is Italian, basically. Spaghetti, macaroni, pizza, pasta as a whole is Italian, but we all eat it. So we need the world eating our food, dancing to our music. Now, Afrobeat is doing it. Afrobeat is doing it, and it's doing it very well, right?
Yeah,
and we need to
is.
do that with our food. We need to do the same thing with our fashion. We need to do the same thing with our thinking, with our proverbs. You know, there's so much we can take to the world and keep universal. That will be the Pan-Africanism we have to see, not the ones that try to keep our tradition and culture within our people, as opposed to exporting our ideas to the whole world. And that is the next level for Africa.
This is good stuff. You know, a lot of people meet me on the road. They ask me, why do you wear these beads? The same exact reason why you wear that cap.
Yes.
It reminds me that I'm a king,
yes,
I'm a priest, and I'm a prophet.
Yes.
3 in 1.
That's it.
And I'm seated at the right hand of the King of Kings.
That's it.
I am sat at his right hand.
Right now.
And right now as we are speaking, and he has sent me to represent him here on this podcast right now, to deliver this message to every African right now. And it is about time that we embrace our authenticity and our identity. In fact, you spoke about Pan-American and Pan-European. Honestly, there's so much that they have owned that is not theirs.
Correct.
I did another research about a lot of the designers and the prints that have made them so popular. Those prints are originally African.
Yes, I agree.
A lot of the prints, LV, Chanel, a lot of those prints, Gucci, Givenchy, a lot of those signature prints are authentically African.
Correct.
So really, when we talk about Pan-Africanism, really and truly, it's about time for us to pause and begin to research and ask ourselves some very fundamental questions. A lot of these things, where are they coming from? R&B, where is it from? And the reason why the energy of Afrobeats is taking over the world is that the world has connected to the source.
Correct.
To the original source. How much of the other original sources do we need to get the world to understand?
So many.
Do you know that this microphone was discovered by an African, a black man? The microphone. The technology was created by an African. You know, man, it's if we keep going on,
my brother, my challenge with reparations, right? My challenge with reparations is that it locks us into history and denies us of the authentic journey we can navigate for the future. You know, because when you look at it, slavery happened. If you look at the Barbary pirates in North Africa, alone, they enslaved white people. For years. I think the only geography in the world that wasn't enslaved in that geography is Western Europe, right? Even though Western Europeans were slaves outside of Western Europe. But the only geography that did not experience slavery will be Western Europe. So slavery happened all over the world. And I keep saying, listen, if we have to focus on reparations, then we have to go that would be the greatest movement of wealth ever. Because we now have to go to everywhere in the world where there was slavery and begin to, for God knows how many years that slavery went on in every corner of the world, right? We cannot continue to articulate the future based on the era of the past. We have to begin to articulate the future based on the power of the past. The power of the past, which is what you are talking about, which are the things that remind us of our genesis and should begin to position us so how do we go forward? Nobody's going to come and dash you prosperity, right? That is not how our people think.
Woo!
That is not how the Africans that built the pyramid, they were not waiting for handouts. They were not waiting for sympathy. A begging bowl is not a pathway to prosperity of any kind. And for every degree of favor that you seek, you lose a level of freedom. Favor is not free. Somebody is going to tie some agenda to that favor and is going to run you on a script that you are completely unaware of in the name of favor, right? So we have to realize that there is a power within all people, and the African is not exempted from that experience, and that we can begin based on the gifts that God has given us as a people, begin to articulate a different type of future based on our genius. There's so much. See, you and I have lived in Africa. You and I live in Africa. You and I have traveled around the world. We see so clearly. There is no articulation that suggests that anybody anywhere is better than any African anywhere.
None.
None.
Absolutely none.
You know. But when you then think that there is no geography in the world that is predominantly black, that is prosperous. There is not one. Today, as we speak today, look at the great history that we have identified. To now imagine the level of experiences that we have had, that today, that same heritage, today, there is no society in the world, there's no geography in the world that is predominantly black, that is prosperous. We have to change that narrative. That is the destiny of the Africans of centuries ago. It must become the duty of the Africans of 2025. It must become the duty of the black people of 2025 to begin to understand that there is yet a power we are yet to communicate, and we must communicate. And that doesn't come from trying to get, I say to people, Switzerland, Luxembourg, and Qatar, Singapore are wealthier countries than the United States. They are richer countries than the United States for so many reasons. Part of which is that the amount of wealth they make more income, which is simple for anybody to understand, compared to the number of people within those geographies. So GDP per capita is higher. The America can have a bigger economy, but in terms of those who have access to wealth, right, there are more people. That it's almost impossible to find poverty in some countries, right?
Yep.
So these countries can be wealthy. They don't have to chase military power. They are not even interested in military power. And if Africans are going to navigate the future, right, we have to communicate what we want, right? Because if you don't communicate what we want, there's already powers that be that will not permit you to experience what you want, except it allows for mutual value, right? And I always say it anywhere. I'm not interested in making Africa, a superpower in the world. We are not interested in being superpower. We want the freedom to think, to achieve, to receive the attention and resources our individuality deserves as a people, to create, to dream, right? To win, to have mental pictures in our minds and to reproduce them in reality, right? That is the force of dreaming. That is happening in Qatar. Qatar is prosperous. America can breathe militarily, and Qatar can disappear from the map. But every Qatari is prosperous because they are not trying to take over the world. They are just trying to ensure that they have the resources their individuality deserves. Maybe if we begin to shift from that and begin to recognize that what we really need in Africa today is economic prosperity. That has to become a common experience for our people. And that way, a lot of power blocks can live with that. What, right? They can live with that. But if you want to become another China, you want to become United States, you want to have nuclear weapons, you want to do, all the big things that threaten the powers that be, there's no promise that you cannot win, but that becomes a much complex commitment to have, right?
Wow.
I don't
Wow.
think there's anything that can limit our economic prosperity if we focus on that and negotiate the destiny of Africa based on that. We don't care who owns the bombs. We just want to keep more money within our people.
Wow, this is so profound. There is no way that we can arrest the future. There's no way we can create a future. There's no way we can walk into the destined future for us without us learning from our past.
There's no
which
way.
we have already done. Now, it is important for us to know who we are, to know who we are not, to know what we are, to know what we are not, and to know what we are made of.
Correct.
Get this, guys. We're moving away from the past. We're moving away from the past that have historically documented that Abraham came to Africa.
Correct.
The seed of his prosperity was found here.
Correct.
When the king took his wife and realized that she was not his sister and gave him a lot of gift, that was the seed of his prosperity.
Correct.
And that's where he started from. Abraham visited Africa, right? Now Moses. I'm talking about very symbolic and significant people. Moses was born somewhere else, and then he did this first 40 years in Egypt. He ran away to the wilderness in Egypt, came back to Egypt before he set the people free, and they began on their sojourn. Joseph found himself in Egypt for him to realize his destiny.
Correct.
So that he will bring the Jews into Egypt for 430 years.
Correct.
So the Jews were slaves and they went borrowing. So the seed that they took away was taken from where? Do you think Pharaoh will run after trinkets and rings? No, there were some things. There were some master plans because they built a lot of things. There was technology that they took away from Africans. There were master plans that they took away from Africans that Pharaoh realized that, damn, if we let these guys go, the blueprint, the technology, these guys will become a force that will come back and bite us. But anyway, it's important that you know that for these people to have been sent, including Jesus, baby Jesus, when the king was going to kill him,
he had to go
to Africa. Angel told him to come to Africa to protect him. So Africa has always sustained the world. And Africa will continue to sustain the world. We must pivot. That's what PK is saying. We must create value for the rest of the world.
Correct.
Just like the Jews.
That's it.
The Jews have realized that the strategy for them to never be annihilated again was to embed themselves in the economies of the world.
That's it.
If you try to eradicate them, you eradicate yourself.
Yes.
The Jews own 100% of the wealth of Monaco.
Yes.
They own between 10 to 20% of the economy of the West, whether it's Europe, whether it's America, wherever. They own between 10 to 25% of the wealth. But in Monaco, they own 100%. How do you wipe them out? And this is the future for Africa.
That's
freedom of the spirit, freedom of the mind, right? Not.
Go ahead.
Please go ahead. Yes. Go ahead. And the ability to create solutions for the rest of the world, which is what we call entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is not selling and buying. Entrepreneurship is providing solutions. Solutions. This is it. We must create solutions. So, PK, how do we begin to position ourselves as solution providers? How do we begin to create industries? How do we begin to create businesses that solve global problems and African problems. This is the way, this is the future, this is the conversation that we should be having.
It is indeed. And when you said, I laughed when you said that, Jesus, himself had to go to Africa, which is probably another debate of whether Jesus is black, because if he was hiding, if he was white, he wouldn't have been able to hide with black people. They would have seen him so easily. His color must not be far from that of the people there. That's why it will hide successfully. But let's leave that because it's irrelevant now. But
Wow.
what I wanted to say, is that there's a mystery there. There's a mystery there with the Jews, in particular. The greatest strength, you see, all you have described about the Jews, the idea that you really want to destroy the Jew, you are going to destroy yourself today. Right? And what they've done is to flip their pain into strategy. You see, what I meant critically was to begin to curate the dispassion, the Jewish dispassion, into a force, right? So, and if you look at what is common between the Jews and the Africans today, is that we both have a legacy of dispassion, right? We both have a powerful diaspora across the world. The Jews are all over the world. Africans are all over the world. What necessitated the journey of the Jews to the world was pain. It wasn't strategy. It wasn't a strategic commitment of the Jews to go to the world. It was persecution on many levels that spread Jews across the world. Now, Africans did not wake up as well to say we want to be in the world. It was pain from slavery to colonialism, that spread Africans across the world. Now, if you go back to the Bible, you see that pain has always necessitated a critical movement of a people into another geography in pursuit of their economic relevance, or in pursuit of their socioeconomic power. Abraham, moved into, it was prosperity. It wasn't just because he wanted to come to Africa. Egypt was prosperous at a level. It was like moving from Nigeria to America today. Egypt at the time was the center of civilization. So people should understand that Joseph becoming prime minister in Egypt is like an African becoming US president. Today, right? That's what it was. Egypt was like the United States of the time in terms of economic power. Egypt was the superpower in the world at the time, right? And part of that was that they had to journey there. And if you look at Jacob, you look at Joseph, you look at Isaac, you look at all of those journeys, all the way down to Esther, diaspora, Ezra, diaspora, all the prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, all of those guys were functioning in the diaspora. So when you look at the history of prosperity of the Jews, even everything we call the documentations, whether it's the Torah or it's the New Testament, is a documentation of diaspora activities. Is diaspora activities. All of those things, happen, in different parts of the world, in Babylon, in now Iraq, in Iran, Persia, in
Turkey,
in Egypt,
Turkey.
and Turkey, and all of those experiences that happened there. And we also can see down today, because whether we like it or not, we have a template there. We have a template there. Even America as a whole was not built by Americans in America, right? Texas was part of Mexico. Texas was Mexico, right? So part of what has happened is that a people can always sit down to rewrite their own story, right? and to look at the contents of their own experiences and to say that we can build newness from here. And I don't know, few nations in the world have survived without a critical diaspora at the core of that newness that they are experiencing, right? People came from outside into America to build the America that we know today, right? So the same thing happened across the world. Israel, as we know today, was not built by people who were in Israel. It was the dispersion that organized to build what we know today as Israel, right? So we can look at Africa and say the greatest strength of our continent, economic strength, as a matter of fact, is now in the diaspora, right?
Yeah.
The biggest income that flows into Africa every year is remittances. Remittances. Money sent home by by African icons across the globe. African, upwardly mobile professionals, entrepreneurs, innovators across the globe. Now, you and I know that anyone sending money home from America or from Canada or from England or anywhere in the world is sending less than 5% of his income, right? Over 95% of his income is still busy in his host country, right? And all of that money that is coming to Africa, that is billions, that is the biggest money we are seeing, is less than 5% of the wealth of the diaspora that is sitting in the host countries. Now, we are not asking the diaspora to move all their wealth back home. It won't make sense because they cannot even interpret a lot back home anymore. But that will be like what happened to Pharaoh when the whole wealth of the Egyptians was being moved, and Pharaoh said, "No, you can't move with all of this value. We have to retain it." So if African diaspora decides to move all their wealth out of their host countries today, there will be war in the world. Nobody's going to allow that to happen. There will be war, just like there was war between Pharaoh and Israel. There will be war. Nobody's going to allow that to happen. So we are saying, don't move it. Keep it there. It's okay, right? Just take extra 20% of that income. Just increase your 3%, your 5%. Increase it to 20%. And then ask yourself, what kind of ideas can we begin to fund back home, right? You see, you look at the big companies in Africa today, they're unicorns, from Florida Wave to so many unicorns that we've created across Africa today. Those companies, in reality, are still owned by Americans because it's American investors who funded the Africans, who created those businesses. And those businesses still pay tax to the United States, right? So we need to create our own money. We need to create our own money so that we can invest in our own ideas and we can keep that value within the Black economy. And the way to do that is to begin to invest in our own incubators, begin to create our own funding, begin to create our own money, right? And we are not even trying to disrupt the world. Like, I believe that collaboration is the juice of the universe. We don't want to disrupt the world. We've gained so much power. If we want World War III right now, let Africans all over the world say, we are moving back home, we are moving our money back home. World War III will start.
I like that.
World War
I like that
Just
conversation.
pick a piece of that money and let's begin to build a different economy funded by our people, led by our people, right? With products and services created by our people, but not just created by our people, but created by our people for the world. So we need people of different tongues and cultures consuming our creations. When a Nigerian bank sets up in the UK, right? You are not a global bank until white people are coming into that bank, until Asians are coming into that bank. Toyota is not consumed by Japanese people alone. McDonald's is not eaten by Americans alone. Pepsi or Coca-Cola are not drunk by Americans alone. We have the freedom to create and to organize and strategize in such a way that people of diverse cultures can invest in our creations, can consume our creations,
Wow.
so that we can begin to build a consumer base of people who don't look like us. That is when we are
Wow.
communicating our seriousness in the world and asking the world to take us seriously in the community of nations. We can do that. We can do
Wow.
that.
Wow.
We can
So
do that.
what I hear you say is that we need a new vision, we need a new narrative, we need a new movement. And that new narrative, that new vision, that new movement is about value creation.
Yeah,
It's
correct.
about ownership. It's about ownership of the vehicles that deliver the value, the
Correct.
global value.
Correct.
It is about the diaspora really looking at investing their finances back in Africa.
Correct.
Just a percentage of it, a slightly larger percentage of it. Let me give you some statistics. In just December alone, they call it the dirty December phenomenon.
Crazy.
In 3 weeks, Lagos State generated $72 million in 3 weeks. Lagos State generated $72 million just from diasporans in 3 weeks in December 2024. Approximately $200 million, right, was spent hosting concerts. Approximately $200 million was spent hosting concerts. A total value of 120 billion naira was spent in 3 weeks buying cars in Lagos. The amount of fireworks is that was sold in Lagos is valued at about $2 billion. Fireworks, knockout, back. Now this is just in 3 weeks. Now we need to convert that into an economy, and we need to convert that into value. And this is what we're talking about now. If you are interested in this conversation, if you are interested in being part of this movement, you need to reach out to Kunle and I.
Yes.
Because these are the conversations that we're about to begin to champion.
Yes.
We're about to begin to disrupt status quo.
Yes.
Of African mindsets globally.
That's it.
We are on a mission to change the mindsets. And the mission is driven simply by Isaiah 61. Our sons shall come back from afar.
That's it.
And they will build the old ruins. The desolate places. And this is the time. It is divine. There is, look, if you want to get the best returns on investment, just begin to think about reinvesting in Africa. Look, Kule said it again.
Is 900 million people ready to buy?
Wow.
900 million people ready to buy. Is a billion people ready to buy. It's incredible.
Wow.
And,
a billion people
ready to buy. And when you expand that, the future is black. The entire future of the world is black. And see, the world gets this. And China is positioning for this explosion. The United States is positioned for this explosion. Africans need to begin to understand that there's a lot going on with us. Let us pick population, for example. Just pick population, and you think that all over the world today, my brother, Africa is the only population that is growing younger every year. Growing younger every year. Over 70% of this population is people aged 30, 31, and below. That is future power. That is not happening anywhere else. Anywhere else. In the West, people are not dying. They are not marrying. When they marry, they are not marrying women. Men are marrying men. Women are marrying women. And I'm not judging. I'm just saying you can't procreate based on that. So automatically, you slow down your procreation. Once men are marrying women and they want to have children, they have to depend on somebody else to have that child, right? So Procreation
When men are marrying
is
men or women are marrying women, yes.
and women are marrying women, right? So what that means is that, you know, you slow down your capacity to procreate, right? And in Asia, people are getting old. You know, I gave a forecast that the future is also gray. The future is gray because you are going to have a lot of old people working. If we go to advancement in sciences and medicine, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, electronics, we realize that, listen, people are going to live very long. So in the people think that young people are going to be all over the workplace. I said, no, you're going to have a lot of old people in the workplace who are not dying, who are still healthy, and who have a lot of experience. They will beat, and with work going remote all over the world, they will beat so many young people in the workplace because he can do what you can do on the computer and he's more experienced and he has been doing it for the past 50 years. So you can't compete with him. So you're going to have a lot of old people in the offices across the world who are sitting behind desks, who are extremely skillful, who can learn everything you can learn as a young person, but also have incredible experience, better emotional intelligence, more, you know, grip on life, more grip on life. So they'll be better workers, you know, in the future. And it's not getting sick, you know, with you know all the advances in biotechnology, it will be fine. It's not going to be sick on one spot. It's going to be there. It's going to exercise. It's going to live well. So you have a different construct there. Now, part of that is that, you know, whether the world likes it or not, right? People are not going to be procreating. China has that problem already. The whole of Asia has that problem already. The whole of the West has that problem already. The Caucasian, whether we like it or not, it's not like we are trying to prove any point. The Caucasian is a critical minority in the future. A critical minority, right? There will be more black people working than white people living. There will be more black people working than white people living. So, you know, in the future, black is such a dominant majority, right? And part of my thesis is that the world cannot afford a vengeful black. And we need a collaborating black. Black people have to understand that, but because the world understands that already. And when black people understand that, we can create a collaborative, you know, commitment, a progress that is win-win for all. And part of what is going to happen is that black is going to shift from being a color to being a vibe. It's going to happen. I mean, already you have the gender manipulation where a guy can say, I identify as a woman, and a woman is saying, I identify as a guy, and all of that. I'm not here to talk about that, but I'm saying if that can happen to something as obvious as gender, in the future, you are going to have a white person saying, I am black. You are going to have an Asian saying, I am black, and justifiably so. Justifiably so, because, I mean, like I give an example every time. If you go to Washington, you are going to find yellow cabs everywhere. Yellow cabs everywhere, except that none of these cars is actually yellow. These cars are green, they are blue, they are white, they are you know, purple, they are black, they are all kinds of colors, but they are all called yellow cabs. Why are they called yellow cabs? Because yellow, in that sense and in that context, is no longer a color. It's a vibe. It's a vibe that resonates beyond the limit of color. So in the future, black as well is going to resonate beyond the limits of color. And people all over the world are going to have to honor black, celebrate black, because black is going to be a dominant majority in the future. So what does that mean for black people today? You know, how should we interpret that? You know, we are the future of a lot of things: workforce, market, consumption, production, you know, the future of a lot of things. So we can begin to take advantage of that, you know, fact of the future, and begin to allow that prescience to command our decisions today, right? There's so much we can give the world, and there's a market. There's a market that is ready to consume, right? I mean, and Afrobeat is proving it. I said to somebody, why can't we go and find, a partnership with Chef Ramsey, for example, and get him to do an entire series on jollof rice, and let some amazing entrepreneurs invest on that. The whole world will be eating jollof rice from tomorrow. I mean, we don't need to wait for do these things. We just need to get smart, right? If we get the biggest top 5 shows in the world, I mean, food, culinary shows in the world, talking about African delicacy, and get an entire season devoted to some African delicacy, we will go into any restaurant in the world and you will be eating jollof rice there. We need white people cooking jollof rice, not just Nigerians cooking jollof rice. We need the biggest, fine dining restaurants, with jollof rice on their menu. And the chef is Chinese. And the chef, just like a Nigerian chef, is cooking, is making pizza. An Asian chef should be making a 4-year-old. We need an American chef, a white chef making tuwo, right? It's on YouTube. It's just to pick it up and create it and reinvent it. The Chinese delicacy we eat in Africa is different from the one that is eaten in China, right? So the Chinese chef himself gave you an African spec of a Chinese delicacy because we are pepper based. We eat pepper. If you don't put pepper in our food, we can eat it with you today, tomorrow. By next week, we are nauseous. We're not going to eat it with you. We need pepper. So no matter what you are bringing, if you don't mix pepper with it, we're not going to eat it. Just like the Americans eat sugar. If you are going to sell a bar in America, you got to put some sugar inside it. Without sugar, the Americans are not going to have it. So if you look at cars in the automobile industry, they get it. They produce Toyota, American spec. Toyota, European spec. The Toyota that is coming to Africa is different from the one they are selling to America. They have to make the American spec, right? So you don't have to. Now, let me say this. This is very important, my brother. This is so critical. The most powerful nations in the world are not powerful because of their military, and the military is the face of their power, and we think that is the power. The military is what is going on. The economy, the military is what is happening. And what is happening is the energy of the majority, which everybody can see. The economy is what is going on. The reason why the Soviet Union lost the Cold War to the United States is not because they have a lesser army. It's not because they have lesser weapons. It's because they had a failing economy. Economy was the determinant of who won the Cold War. America won because Soviet Union could not keep up with the economic demands of their military strength. So at the end of the day, soft power is the strength of economy. Look at it. There's no superpower in history. There's no superpower in history that did not communicate soft power. We eat pizza, pasta in the world today is the legacy of the Roman Empire. We drink tea and wear suits across the world today is the legacy of the British Empire, right? We eat salad and Greek salad in the world today is the legacy of Alexander the Great in Greece, right? We know the legacy of the Persian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, today's Turkey, the Babylonian Empire, today's Iraq, and a lot of the perfumes, the fragrances, the woods, and all of this in the world today is the legacy of those empires. The idea is China, everybody says that China will take over the world, except the Chinese himself. The Chinese himself is dealing with a low self-esteem, right? Because, you know why? Because he's not ready to share his power with the world, right? If you want to dominate the world, your music must find a way to the world. your culture, your food, your fashion must go away to the world. And you must be ready to also accommodate that of the world in your environment. The Chinese is not doing that well. Language is more powerful than 1,000,000 soldiers. Language is more powerful than 2 trillion soldiers of a country, right? We spoke English because of the British Empire. We spoke Latin, the Roman Empire. We spoke Greek, documentations across the world. Till today, we still interpret the Bible. We have to go to the Greek interpretation. We have to go to to understand what the context of that documentation was, because language is a by far more powerful instrument. Do you know that Hollywood is more powerful than the US Army? The power of Hollywood in the world, the way the whole world dresses, the way we talk, a lot of black culture is in the world and is communicated from Hollywood, whether we like it or not. A lot of our dance steps, the way we cut our hair, the way we dress, the way we show up, a lot of that. Why do young people all over the world look the same way? Young people all over the world look the same way because essentially they all watch the same movies. They watch the same musicians in the world who tell them how to dress, who tell them how to show up, how to make their hair, and all of that. So soft powers. Hollywood is soft power. The music industry, the movie industry communicates American strength more than Washington can ever do that, more than Pentagon can ever do. More than
Wow.
the average African has been watching the American soldier on when he saw First Blood, Commando. One guy just land in a country and kill all their soldiers. His mentality about the US soldier has been branded, right, by Hollywood. The way he sees the US soldier, he even loves him, right? Can I say something, my brother? Look at the the leader of North Korea, who is supposed to be anti-American, who is supposed to hate America with a passion, who is at war with America. This guy imported, permit me to use the word, Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman, an NBA player who is not even in the mix in America anymore right now in terms of conversations or culture, to North Korea, to Pyongyang, to sit with him and spend time with him. It means that this guy has admired the NBA all his life, and this is supposed to be American enemy. Now, what made him do that? It's not Pentagon, it's not the US Army, it's not the generals, it's the NBA and the enterprise called the NBA and how all of that is managed. And this man does not mind. Americans' enemies on many levels love America. Hollywood does that job. Hollywood does that job. There's a lot we have not seen yet. If America and North Korea goes to war today, you'll be stunned how difficult it will be for the average soldier to kill an American soldier because he likes him. That's a joke, but honestly, he likes him. He has watched his movie. He listens to his song. He dresses like him. He looks like him. He makes his hair like him. That's what superpowers do. And so Africa has the capacity to do a lot in the world today. You tell me, is there any continent in the world? In fact, Nigeria, for example, jollof rice has been ready, waiting for somebody to take it to the world. Fufu has been ready, waiting for somebody to take it to the world. Afrobeat was ready for years, but thank God we got it right, and it's going to the world today. We have enough soft power to go to the world and build a global economy for our people. We have to think that way. So come to us.
So
there's a lot we are curating. There's a lot we are curating, and in the next couple of weeks, you are going to hear more. But if you are interested in the kind of things we are doing, please reach out. Please reach out, because we are taking this message to the world. We're taking it to the world. We are curating town hall meetings across the globe, myself and Larry, and we are doing so much. So you want to plug in and ask more questions. We're going to put more models out for it so that it's easy for people to connect with what we are trying to do. But there is a destiny ahead of us. It's divine, it's spiritual, and it's time.
Wow. Let's land with this message. I mean, the topic is secrets of Africa's future dominance, past and future. We've gone into the past, we've analyzed our present condition, and we've gone into the future. And we're saying that the future is black. That's 1 billion people. 1 billion people. The youngest and most populous continent in the world. So the future is black. The future is African. And we are the next biggest market.
Yes.
Black is the vibe of the future. What is your role in the future?
Come on.
What is your place in the future? If you want to nail it, whether you're an organization, an institution, or a government, and you want to reshape your destiny, reach out to Kunle and I, and we will work with you to make it happen. Wow. You know, interestingly, each podcast is about 45 minutes, but I knew that it was going to be impossible for us to do this conversation in 45 minutes. We already said it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to break this into two parts.
Great.
And, you know, part A and part B for your consumptions. You know, I want to thank everyone, you know, that has tuned in. Kunle, thank you for your wealth of wisdom on this particular episode. You know, I want to thank every listener for joining us on the Be Transformed podcast. Remember that we are all about transformation, and transformation in your life, transformation in your expression, or in your identity starts with your mind. That's right. That is what we are all about. And today's conversation has been phenomenal. Now, if today's conversation has blessed you, don't keep it to yourself. You've got to share it. So subscribe to my YouTube channel. Go to my Spotify, my Apple, or wherever you listen to the podcast, and make sure you consume this, and make sure you listen to it over and over and over again. But most importantly, make sure that you share it with somebody else, because the future is you. The future is black. Everybody is coming back to Africa. I want to thank you. Kunle, you have a wonderful day.
My brother, you too, man.
Viewers, you have a phenomenal and incredible day. Thank you.
I am successful. I look for and find opportunities where others see nothing. I am a lifetime learner. I am solution focused. I see only solutions. I am a solution.